Here. We're here.
We be here. We be late. We be running on drag time. Well, not real drag time.
No, we're not on real drag time. We still have another 30 minutes before we're on real drag time.
Anyway, we're way too early to the club.
Yeah.
Everybody in the club. All eyes on us. Why am I suddenly singing Britney? That's a mess. That's a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess.
So one of my coworkers has a sign in his cubicle that says, if Britney can make it through 2007, you can make it through today.
That is so incredibly true. I think I've seen it as a meme.
I'm sure that's where he got it from.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. That's what's wrong.
What?
It was spelled wrong.
What was spelled wrong?
Britney.
Oh. I thought you meant something like in the name of the episode or whatever. I was like, what?
No. I'm trying to do a tag, and I was like, oh, no, that it's a Britney, but it's not that Britney. It's a different Britney.
Leave Britney alone.
Yeah, that works.
Right. Video link is in the doc.
No.
All right, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Hey DJ, play that song.
10 across the board. RuPaul Drag Race.
Hey there, kitty girls. It's April 9th, 2018. And do you know what that means? We got something to talk about. Welcome to Cubs Out Loud Drag Race T-Time, Season 10, Episode number 3. Woo, child. You have been waiting for this episode. I know you have, because you cannot have seen what is happening on the internet about this. It is all afire. And if you don't know who the hell we are, first of all, I'm Gary, but with me are my two fabulous co-hosts.
I'm Damon, and I have something to say.
I'm Chester, and I probably have little to say.
Wow. Well, if you hadn't already figured out from watching us here on YouTube, it's Pink Brigade night, bitches. We kind of coordinated. So Chester's in a deep, lovely magenta T-Mobile kind of hue. I happen to be more in a Pepto-Bismol kind of mood. And then Damon is in a lovely, dainty kind of like Mean Girls meets Elle from, law school kind of pink, bubbly thing. So yeah.
Mine has donuts.
Mine has cats.
Mine has beard hair. So there you go.
There you go.
Mine doesn't necessarily have anything on it, but there you go. All right. We got to dive right in. There ain't no feedback. So let's do this thing. All right. Mini maxi discussion. What we think stood out from the show. Chester, kick us off. What did you think?
Get your head in the game. Because there are some queens that are they're off in their own little fucking world.
Amen.
They are so completely worried about what the other queens are doing and not worried about themselves, or they are so stuck with their own view on drag or their own drag aesthetic that they're not taking criticisms very well. Or the other thing is they're in team challenges and their teammates are trying to tell them give them ideas, guide them in what they want from the challenge, and they're just not listening.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm pretty sure you do, because I can see it further down the list.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So yeah, it's just it just comes down to and it's proven season after season that if you are awake and you're listening to the commentary from the judges, the commentary from your peers, not letting yourself get in your own head about shit. Particularly Eureka from last week, where she was in the bottom. It lit a fire under her ass, and this week she was on top because the judges called her out for it.
Yeah,
like, you gotta get the fuck out of your head.
Ain't that the truth? Get your head in the game. Get out of your head and get your head in the game.
Yeah,
like that's
How's your head, darling?
apparently empty.
Go ahead, sip your tea. Okay. Anything else, Chester?
No, that's it for now.
Okay. Damon, what are your thoughts on the episode in terms of the mini maxi stuff?
My usual thing is they could have done. I said they could have done more, and I'm kind of meaning. So the challenge was this. The main challenge was this app thing, and they gave you these apps, and they gave you kind of a general description, and you were supposed to kind of write the script and act it all out, and that was kind of the thing. I was like, okay, cool. And the apps were, to be perfectly honest, kind of basic. It was a dating app for liars, a dating app for end of the world, whatever, Apocalypse Now, and then an app called, that was the one that was the only one kind of more specific, was the Butterface one, which was Banging Body Butterface. And that one, I think, had, of the three, that's the one that had, I think, the most issue, because it was a little bit more specific. Fipster, Pathological Liar, you can go anywhere with it.
Right.
The End of Days, you can kind of go anywhere with it. You can do Zombie, you can do which is what they did in this challenge. They went the kind of religious rapture, after. I like that they went that route without going too major with it. I'll get to that in a second. But so you kind of can go in these different directions. And I just felt like the one for me that I think they could have done so much more with it was the Pathological Liar's fate, the liar one, the Fipster. And the main reason being is I'm of the, and I'm dating myself a little bit, if you remember Saturday Night Live and John Lovitz and his character that was pretty much a pathological liar. Everything that kind of came out of his mouth was a lie. And I loved that kind of, because he was quick with it. It was wonderful, and it was great comedy, and you could have done so much more with it. So that was my kind of real big thing. I feel like the team went in this weird direction that just didn't quite land.
Yeah, no, I think they were trying really hard to maneuver the landscape of lying, and stick to the script, where Lovitz, if I recall correctly, those type of skits, they're always escalating, and getting more outlandish. It wasn't Lovitz, but there was another one where it was the character, and I can't remember the character's name. Maybe it was Matt TV, where she was always one-upping. So you'd be like, oh my God, this crazy thing happened on the way home, from work. There was an accident in front of me and I saved this guy's life. I gave him CPR. And then the neighbor, who was a woman, would say things like, oh, that's nothing. There was a train wreck in front of me and I pulled 7 bodies burning from the train, you know what I mean? She was always one-upping everything. And it was so obvious that she was fibbing.
Yeah.
So now I understand where you're coming from, Damon. In this circumstance with the app, it was, that's okay.
Nothing with their dialogue really landed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I never got liar.
Well, except for I don't remember which queen did it, but they were saying that I'm from Beverly Hills, and actually
Oh,
they were
that
in-
part. Yeah.
was that Monet?
Yeah, or not Monet. Monique. There was Monique.
Yeah.
Okay.
Monique was the one that was
the only one that seemed on brand with what they were trying to do.
Mhm.
It didn't. I have watched the episode 3 times now, and it
Mhm.
didn't take me until the third pass that I understood Asia and the other person, Aquaria, what they were doing. Aquaria was online giving this idea of who she is, and then it was Asia who came out and
Oh, you mean
that was for Butterface.
oh no,
yeah. You're thinking of Cameron and
Yuha.
no, Mayhem.
Oh yeah,
I'm
Yuha
sorry.
was part of Butterface.
Cameron and Mayhem.
Cameron and
was,
Mayhem. Cameron was online,
Right.
pretending to be this glitzy, glamorous girl who just wants somebody to take her by the hand and lead her along through life. But in real life, she was a dominatrix. I didn't get that the first 2 times I watched it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until the third time I watched it, and I'm like, that's what they were trying to do, because if that's what it was not executed well.
Right, but to be fair, in the history of RuPaul's Drag Race, all the seasons, including the All Stars, ain't no queen pulled off leather. And that's my only issue is girls don't step in the sandbox if you don't know the rules. Like because you make yourself a fool, and nobody wants that. We love you dearly, just don't do it. So that's the whole thing, because they're kind of like, what's it like leather? And then I could see the whole other community going, no, not even. First of all, that's Playtex. Second of all, like, yeah. So that's the thing is, with her being a, with Mayhem trying to be a dominatrix. First of all, she wasn't carrying the character personality wise. And then it cracked me up because she was like, well, what if I take the jacket off? Because the feedback from Carson and Michelle was she looks more like a biker chick out of Grease. So she takes the jacket off and she's like, well, does this look better? And they're both like, yes, which even I agreed. I was like, well, that is going in the correct direction. It is not accurate, but yes,
it's
like
closer. Here's leather, and you're kind of like here, kind of. Wait, let me put that in focus. There we go. Like, here's leather, and you're kind of like. Yeah. Anyway,
what makes it even worse is the team leader is the one who told her to do it.
Yep.
It wasn't a choice that she made on her own.
That whole Abby Miller stage dance moms directing like Sing Out Louise thing that's happening. I was like, no, okay, whatever. Like, to be fair though, she had a very clear vision in her head and she knew exactly what was happening. And the way the edit comes across, she just seems like a super bossy bitch. And I feel bad because I think her teammates were kind of okay with it. Now, granted, in confessional, they were like, rah, 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 rah. And I was kind of like, well, that's the show and it's drama. Later, if you get a chance, you kind of like complain about it or whatever. So I'm like, who knows?
Yeah.
So David, they could have done more. All right. So Mini Maxi. So here's the thing. I said 2 things. What the fuck? And no one molted their looks. So help me recall, because I only ended up watching the show once. I had a very busy week. Mini challenge was quick drag, 20-minute, and they were selling RuPaul's chocolate
bars. The casting call. It's the casting like call or whatever.
That is my what the fuck. Because it became so abundantly apparent that Ru was just fucking with the girls to fuck with the girls, and whoever made her laugh was the one that won.
Well,
so I was okay.
I know what they were doing. I know what they're kind of going. It's sort of meant to be like if you've ever seen like screen tests for things, the idea behind it is to like get different things out of the person by having them do random weird things. And sometimes, I mean, this one obviously went the bent of the funny. It was obviously going for that route. So clearly it, the jokes were kind of, visual and humor, and some were kind of, whatever, but it was very much like in a normal screen test, the director is kind of saying, so would you read that line again, but read it with a British accent or something along those lines, or read it with your tone a little bit lower, That's
I have a idea about why it was the way it was, but we'll wait until my eye rolls.
Okay.
Okay.
So the mini challenge, I was like, what the fuck? Like, it was obviously a plug for a chocolate bar, which actually they went through a lot of chocolate bars. So I was very proud of WoW Presents and VH1 or whoever dropped the coin to pay for all that chocolate with the nuts and the sea salt and the rest of it. Cause I was like, these girls like was eating that shit up. Like, so that cracked me up. So I went, but anyway, and then for the maxi challenge though, the runway thing was, and this is what I'm focusing on actually is more the runway than the maxi. I was like, no one molted their looks. I was shocked that feathers are the thing, and yet nobody made a mess really of the stage. So I was really kind of thrown off by that because I thought, if anything, I would have seen feathers flying everywhere, like coming off of outfits, naturally dropping, falling. It was part of the act. It was meant to look, you know what I mean? Like it just, yeah. So I was like, okay, well, it's interesting. I'm not necessarily a fan of the idea of the runway challenge. I'll just
feathers.
stop at that. Yeah. So, that's just kind of how I feel about that. I have a question for you two. Normally we move on to the next category, but I'm wondering if you guys are game to switch it and skip it and come back around and go to snaps and eye rolls next.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, because I have a funny feeling it's Untucked that we really want to talk about.
Yeah.
Or something in terms of what happened. And I don't think anything in snaps and eye rolls does that. So, plus I'm trying to see if you're awake. Kidding.
Girl.
All right, let's do that.
The time has come. Need to lip sync for your life.
Spit it out.
Good luck, and don't fuck it up.
That always makes me laugh. And don't fuck it up. But somebody does. Chester, who's your snaps for?
My snaps were for Mayhem's self-realization in the workroom. She had come back there after the judge's critique, and while she was on stage, she kind of tiptoed around accepting the blame. And what is funny is, and I'm sorry that I don't know who was who in the group because I was lazy and I didn't write anybody down. So who was the leader for that group? Was it
Monique?
Okay.
Yes.
So Monique was backstage because she was safe, and she was like, I'll bet you anything Mayhem's going to come back here and try and throw me under the bus. And if she does, I'm going to read her for filth online for it, because I gave her plenty of opportunity to voice her concerns and her opinions. Mayhem got her critique, came back to the workroom. She first stated something about Mayhem kind of pigeonholed her into that, but then a few moments had gone by and you see Mayhem kind of off to one side with somebody else. I don't remember who she was talking to, but she's owning up to it. She's like, it's my fault. I should have had a bigger voice. I was given a chance to. I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
I'm the one who put myself in this position. So snaps to her.
No, I agree with you on that one, Chester, that you got to see the arc. Like, you got to see her take that journey and realize I got nobody to point the finger at but myself, because I created this, I manifested, I allow it to happen. But I'm very happy for her that she had that reality. And then she also said, no more.
Yep.
And your eye rolls?
I do have one little mini snap.
Uh-oh.
Kind of. And because I want to talk about the production and the editing of the show. Now, for my little mini snap, I want to give it to whomever is in charge of making sure that the film that or things that get filmed are done so in a very artistic way. Specifically, Vixen had that sign on that said the end is near.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
And it was in the workroom off of the stage somewhere. And I have a feeling that whomever filmed this had moved it at some point, because there was one scene where it was up against a wall, and then there was another scene where it was like up against a table. And in both
Yes.
of those scenes, that sign is very prominent in the foreground, or very prominent. Like in
Mhm.
one scene, it's right up in your face in the foreground, and in another scene, there's this stuff going on over on this half of the screen, and over on this half of the screen is the sign. And I thought that was incredibly artistic and clever editing.
Mhm.
Many snaps to the
noticed-
production crew.
I noticed that when I watched the episode the second time, I was kind of like, "Who? Oh, like they, and not only that, it was used in such a way. I mean, it was obviously like someone's time on a show was ending, but it was very. I like that they kind of put it there and they kept it like just outside of
Just off of you.
just off to the side, but you saw it still. But I was like, okay.
Yeah,
Good for
the
you.
first time I seen it, I was like, "Ooh, that's some really good eye catching from whomever
Mhm.
was filming." They
Mhm.
went to art school, and then a few scenes later, I noticed that the sign was in a completely different spot, and I was like, "Oh, they definitely know how to use this because they've moved it."
Mhm.
As Ginger Tea Time says in the live chat, Ace of Base, I saw the sign realness.
That's great.
Yeah.
So my snaps are also for the production team and their editing, because
Snaps or eye rolls?
my eye rolls, sorry.
Okay. That's
My
okay.
eye rolls are also for the production team in editing, because pretty sure Miss Rue was sick.
Yes.
She didn't have the same level of boisterousness that
Yep.
she typically is on stage with. And you can see it in the workroom when she's in there doing the mini challenge. You can see it in the later in the workroom when she's discussing the challenge, the main stage challenge, and even during the runway challenge, she's a bit more docile.
Mhm.
Now, here is why I am giving it some big eye rolls, is because you can tell that when she's in the workroom, that shit is recorded, and it's not recorded in front of everybody. Or I don't mean live in the sense of we're watching her talk live. I just mean live on set.
Mm.
It is recorded after the fact, or not on set, or something. You can always tell because the audio sounds ever so slightly different. And on top of that, you rarely get a front shot of her speaking. There are no shots of her speaking in a wide angle format with Rue on one side and the girls on the other, which there almost always is at least one of those shots.
Mhm.
And her voice is very monotone, because usually when she's in there, she's very uppity and she talks like this, and there's a lot of animation in her voice.
Right.
And when she's explaining, it's not. It's very dry and monotone and very steady. So it's just
My guess is, so Brady reached out to me. We were watching it live. Brady in our Entourage COLDR chat said, I have a question. I want to take it offline or whatever. Like he didn't want to spoil anything. And all I did was I sent him a private message and I said, yes, Rue is sick and it's getting worse as the show goes on. because it was so abundantly clear she had a head cold. And as the show was going, it just progressed and got worse and worse because her voice quality was deteriorating. And so was her energy. My bet is when she was in the workroom at the beginning for the mini challenge and that, her voice wasn't that great. So they probably decided to go back and dub it. So she had to read whatever she said to try to match, but obviously not tone and the rest of it. And yes, I agree. And that happens in every episode, a little bit of what you're talking about, Chester, because you'll pay attention. You're looking at her head on, she's talking, you're watching her, and then they go and they shoot off of Rue, and there's a bit of a description of the challenge that sounds different, like it was recorded in a studio versus in a cavernous workroom with a body mic.
Right.
And I agree, like there's a surprise to me that in AVR editing, they haven't figured out. And I don't know how to do this because I'm not a professional in that level. But I'm like, really, girl, there isn't a button somewhere in a software that you could make that match to the other stuff?
Why not just grab the same equipment that you would normally use and record it in the workroom?
Yeah.
I don't know. So, no, I get what you mean. Like, yeah, it was...
So,
it was
going back to your original statement about what the fuck was this challenge about? I have a feeling that they were given this challenge by the crew, and the crew was making them do it, and Rue came in and dubbed over it.
Oh, that could be true. Although it would be weird to be doing the mini challenge and having like the stage manager is giving you the stage direction on how to behave with the chocolate bar versus Rue. But to me, it seemed very abundant that she was clear she was not in the workroom, that they made it sound like she was in a remote room over a PA system. Yeah. And I think that was done intentionally because I did not think she was necessarily there. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if she was watching on CATV cam or something, you know, close circuit. But you're right. It could also be, Chester, that she just wasn't there. And they were just like, nope, she out for the day. She's sick and production got to go. So somebody will just instead fill in and we'll fix it in post.
Nice. Fix it in post. Just we'll edit that out.
And Chester's like, not a fix.
Didn't quite land there. It was kind of, we saw it.
Yeah.
Right through it.
Yeah. Damon, your snaps?
Okay. So my snaps are actually to two things. First is actually the team Blair St. Clair. They did the end of days app thing, and I think theirs was funny, and it actually made sense, kind of, you know. But the whole premise of end of days and taking it in that like Rapture kind of way, I think made it very not topical, but you know, funny without being, and they did it tastefully. You know, they weren't necessarily dogging or whatever religion. They just did it in a way to kind of give it a bit of a
dogging.
That was, yeah. But it worked. Like I said, I really liked it. I thought it was really good, well done. I liked everything that they all did. Well, the Vixen was kind of, she was there. That's great. That's all that really mattered, personally. And it was good. It was the way they did it was good. And then I'm giving like super like snaps to the Cameron Michaels runway look, the like, oh, what did he call it? Like queen, I can't even read my dark like crow queen, like real. It was so amazing. And the best part was for me, Cameron's really, I know Cameron is, we all know that he's like, and he as a guy is like this muscly, like built kind of guy. What he does really well in his drag is he finds ways to kind of mask how built he is. So he had this big like cape on that, you know, moved with his arms, and it worked so fucking well with the way that their wings and their birds and its feathers and all that stuff. So I loved that. The makeup was on point. Everything was great. I felt bad that he was in the bottom, but oh my God, it worked. All of it just worked for me. I was like, yes, like 10s for that shit right there.
Mm-hmm.
So those are my snaps.
Okay.
Um,
And your eye rolls?
So my eye rolls are for Yuha's excuses. So, spoiler alert if you've gotten this far. Yuha goes home this episode, and I understand why. So last week, since I wasn't on the episode, last week was the runway was best drag.
Mm-hmm.
And she came in with a, if I remember correctly, a blue like leotard, something kind of, it was shiny and maybe it was, stoned or whatever, but it was a blue leotard. And she says that this was not her best drag.
Mm-hmm.
She indicates that she has another thing, but she was waiting to wear it, for something else. I'm like, okay, no. And Ross points out, you only get one shot and you better take it. And I was like, yeah. So in this episode, it was, you were supposed to be ugly. She didn't get ugly ever. I don't care what you call those dots. They're no, they weren't moles. You had a couple of hairs. You were pretty with just it looked like someone painted dots on your face. That wasn't ugly. That wasn't the butter face that we were kind of looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And then the look just wasn't all there. I don't get why you say it was relating to Asian culture or something along those lines. And I still don't get that. But then again, I'm not Asian, so maybe I'm missing something that I don't know about. Anyway, it just all didn't land. And so I was kind of I was okay that she left.
Mm-hmm.
Would I have liked to have seen more from her? Possibly. But I don't think there was more to give. And the only reason I'm really giving her an eye roll is because as part of the iTunes, you get the What You Packin'. So you get the What You Packin' episodes as well. So I saw her What You Packin', and I saw the gown that she said she was her best gown, her best drag.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, it was so fucking beautiful. And I'm like, why didn't you wear that? Why? Why? I mean, any of those, it was not the blue denim thing, but the one, either one of those would have been better than what you put on.
Yeah.
Right. So
it
tired
could
of
be
excuses.
because some of these girls think in their head, I've got to save my best drag for the end.
Mm-hmm.
When what they really need to do is bring their best drag to every single runway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where Yuha has more growing and evolving to do. She thinks she knows for herself what is best.
Yeah.
And that is usually the downfall of the first third to half the queens in every season that is an All-Stars. They think they know best for themselves, what fits best, what looks best, what works best, and blah, 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 blah. And I think Yua has been touched by that kind of thing of, I made this decision. And it's kind of like, okay, well, you made that decision. As Tatiana would say, choices. So that's where she is.
All right. How about you?
All right, so my snaps are for jaw-dropping runway looks. It took till season 10's episode 3 for me to be like, oh, all right, I am finally gagged a little. Like my jaw drops. I gay gassed. Not every single one of these bitches that walk the runway, but a few of them.
Yeah.
So I want to recognize Eureka, motherfucking head to toe, all this black feather as kept getting talked about. She was covered in rooster feathers. In other words, she had cock all over her. I know people are not a fan of her in the loaf with the hair, but I thought it was a brilliant accent in the blonde gold. Like, I was like, yes, big girl working the runway and looking fucking fabulous. So she definitely got a lot, a deserved attention and snaps for that. Cameron Michaels. Oh my God, Cameron is a look queen. I finally figured out what her story is. Like, yes, she's a dude and she's muscly and she's tatted and blah, 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 blah. She's a real bro out of drag, but she is so crafty about knowing how to give an illusion so that you aren't seeing the man underneath the woman that's being presented. And I know some people kind of critiqued and said online that it was very costumey. I don't give a shit. It was fucking unbelievable. It was great. The shoulder thing was perfect to like over accent the makeup piece. As someone pointed out online, she may be the first queen in Drag Race history to make a unibrow look gorgeous. And the Bob Mackie kind of middle torso, like nude illusion, but not. I mean, there was just so much about it that like really worked well. There was a couple of them. So yeah, I was like, yes. This was really good. A lot of people are kind of 50-50 on this. I personally gasped when Blair St. Clair walked out first.
I did
I
too.
thought that white gown was amazing for her petite little frame.
Too.
I was not a fan of people being like, it just looked like it was wet chicken feathers and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, bitch, I don't give a shit. I don't see you wearing it.
I thought it was gorgeous.
Yeah. So for her and her personality and her look and her style, her aesthetic, I was like, that is so beautiful. And I have to give props to Aquaria for her like wounded bird thing when she came out. While I wasn't a big fan of that white outfit, I loved the theatricality and the two arrows and the blood. It told a story. So while I'm not a big fan of her personality, sorry, bye girl.
Okay.
That look and that stuff really worked well for me. And then I do have to give recognition for this. I'm not 100% sold on it, but the Vixen's peacock dress was beautiful. I would have liked it done a little differently, but there is something to be said for the asymmetrical style of the back of it. And yes, she worked the motherfuck out of it on the runway, swishing and fanning it out and that. I give her props for not doing what people said would have been more traditional, which is to do this big, like, look, I'm a peacock, with the big feather thing. How she kept it more subtle. The story that she told with it was really good. So I was happy with it. It's not the best, but
And honestly, most of the time, that's what the peacock looks like. The male one, it's not like always drawn up, and that's when they're like dancing or presenting or mating or whatever, So it's always, it's usually down and like, draping the floor, draping the ground kind of thing. So I loved her look. I loved the hair that kind of went with some of the colors in the feathers a little bit. I liked that too. I'm going to read a comment because I was laughing earlier while you're saying something. Yeah, Ginger, thank you. This is awesome. She was like, I loafed it. It rose to the occasion. It wasn't every time. Bread pun. Yeah. Kudos. Ginger.
In regards to the Vixen's peacock, I don't even know why this just popped into my head. But do you guys remember Kenya Michaels when she came out as that Phoenix and she did that thing with her wings? I'm glad that it wasn't like that. And you're right. I think it was better. It was executed better being asymmetrical, especially when she turned around and whipped it around herself. That was when I was like, her dress is great, but as soon as she like flung it around and twirled, I was like, okay, now it's fantastic.
Yeah. If it were me, the edit I would give to redo that dress is I would make that asymmetrical tail an illusion, that in reality it's more like the condensed feathers on a real peacock. And then when you get to the end of the runway, and if you spin, if you can figure out how to make it work, it actually would fully encompass you.
Like
you would,
what's her face's fire dress in Hunger Games?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it would like it would suddenly be very dramatic, like an unfurl kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the big thing is that even if it came close to 360, you could still step with it and have it kind of fall back. But like that takes some architecture, obviously, and some, you know, shit that I don't know nothing about when it comes to like costume or outfit design. So yeah, so snaps for jaw-dropping looks, and then my eye rolls. This is my quote. Are you high, Clary?
Uh-oh.
There is one very specific runway look that I was like, what the fuck you wearing? And that's Dusty Ray Bottoms. She came out in that white and green feathered, I don't know what it was, like weird saloon girl meets something else with the ombre red hair with the white eyelash thing that just didn't pop, it faded. I was like, ew. Like that's literally when she walked out on the runway, I was like, ew. I don't boot. Don't like it. Don't know what it is. Boot. Not sure. So that's why I was like, are you high? Because like maybe that's why I don't get it and I don't understand it. But notably, they didn't really focus on it. So
yeah,
I was kind of confused. I was like, okay, all right. But obviously, that's not the story that we're trying to tell.
When I saw it, the first thing that went through my mind is, oh, that's Las Vegas Showgirl right there.
Like on the you mean not on the strip, but like on the street, the alley that's next to the strip, like where you pay less for the
I'm not saying it would have been, you know, showcasing at the Bellagio, but
right. Yeah, no, I think it was a lot of bad choices, but that's just me. So
yeah, there's some just bad overall. I of the looks, it was the one that missed for me too.
Yeah. Okay, are we ready to get snatched and talk about Untucked?
Sure.
Girl, if you're not watching Untucked, you're only getting half the story.
I'm sorry, I have to agree with this. I'm so glad this is the clip that I chose for this season, because Rue says if you're not watching Untucked, you're only getting half the story. And I'm like, A to the motherfucking men. There is so much going on in every episode. I'm like, it's almost kind of like, could you pack any more? Could you just shove it in there? I mean, really, like, it's amazing to me in a half an hour how much they're getting in there.
Mm-hmm.
Chester, you've got a very interesting comment about Untucked, so I want you to explain this.
Okay. Oh, I had to remember what I wrote down. So the whole fight between Vixen and Aquaria very much reminded me of the fight between Laganja and Bianca. With her in the workroom and going off like, why am I the victim? I feel very attacked.
Yeah, when they got in.
That's exactly how
Untucked, yeah.
Aquaria is, you know, you're coming in here and you're putting on this personality, and then when people knock you down for it or call you out on your bullshit, suddenly you're attacked.
I feel very attacked. Well, you were. Deal with it. Don't attack unless you can take the attack back. And that's kind of what the Vixen was saying. Like, I'm going to come at you because you've come at me. If you can't take it, don't come at me.
Right.
Like that's pretty much what she said. Like, so, are you good, Chester?
Yeah, because I'm gonna have a whole hell of a lot more to say when you guys get done.
I'm sure. So basically, as I was going there, so Vixen pretty much, the thing that I loved in a sense about this episode was some of the things that Vixen said. And honestly, at first, when the episode started and Monique kind of basically pulled it out of them, or whoever, someone like pulled it out, like trying to get Vixen and Aquaria to kind of squash it. They were trying to get them to squash whatever was going on between them so that they can move on with the rest of, the show or whatever.
Right.
And while I respect that, this was not the time or the place for that. We should have waited. Like, no, I'm just saying in the sense that everything that just went on, the fact that they literally little bit ago just had this big ass like almost like not knockdown drag out fight, but they were yelling at each other in the work and getting ready for this challenge. Let's give them a little time to cool off before we try to like throw the dogs back at the angry dogs back at each other. Having said that, props to the Vixen for being true to herself and having enough of knowing of herself to know that I'm not going to change myself or edit myself for the sake of this show, TV, these girls, whatever. She pretty much pointed out, and she said it in the work, like to Aquaria, leave me alone. And that's when I was like, go ahead, because that is her. She is saying like, you can't take me as me. So let's not even continue conversating, talking, whatever, conversating. Conversing.
I understand.
Let's not even go there anymore because we are not going to mix. And her poignant statement that I think you're going to get into probably in a bit, Gary, is so like I normally don't use like RuPaul's Drag Race. It's like, oh, this is like social commentary and something on political landscape. But here we are, like pointing something out that a lot of movements like the Black Lives Matter movement and other things have dealt with is this whole pretense where if we're trying to get something that we have been fighting for, equality, what have you, and we're doing it in a potentially aggressive manner, and we ruffle some feathers, pun intended, or we have some emotions come out, it's suddenly we're the bad guys. But for years and years and years, we've had to deal with it. And now that we're trying to get what we want, now we're suddenly like, it's a problem. Suddenly it's a thing. It's the same thing with the shooting, the school shootings, where now we have these teenagers and these kids saying, we have had enough. We want you to make better gun laws and all this stuff. And they're doing all this stuff. And all these adults are kind of like, well, why are they saying this? Because there's kids. No, obviously no one has been listening to them for years now. And they finally said, we've had enough. So we're going to make a statement. We're going to make a movement. We're going to do so that our voices are finally heard. So, yeah.
So my comment on Untucked, the title of my thoughts is Social World Commentary. So what I think you're saying, Damon, is the Vixen pointed out in parallel how the way she's behaving and responding to Aquaria like has consequences. Yeah. And like Aquaria's response to that. So when I watched Untucked, my jaw hit the floor and I literally said out loud, oh no, she didn't. Yeah. Because Ms. Cracker is trying to mediate and Vixen is like, no. Like, and she was pushing back on Cracker, and that bugged me a little because I got where Ms. Cracker was trying to say, you're always coming in at a 10. Why don't you try coming in at a 5, girl? And Vixen's like, no, because that is me seceding down. That's not who I am. I committed a 10. And at first I was a little resistant to it, but then I heard her out and understood where she's coming from. When my jaw hit the ground, though, was when the bitch broke the fourth wall. For the first time in all the seasons, she turned around and called it out and said, listen, you say something to come at me, so I come back at you. And then this becomes a problem. This becomes a thing. And you say something, I say something back to you. Now you cry. You cry, and you, to the cameras and to the world, make me look like an angry Black woman.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, mic drop. She just called out this whole thing, like that this is a game. This is a competition. This is being recorded, and there are plot lines, characterizations, story concepts that will be made out of this. And in a way, whether you mean to or not, you are manipulating the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not claiming that the vixen is saying that Aquaria is a bad person and that she was being, evil or whatever. But what happened in that moment that I thought was so groundbreaking was the vixen was like, hold up. I am not going to let this play out without my voice being heard, that I will not be cornered in how the way I respond is going to be viewed in this thing. Like, and I thought that was really, really impactful. And so this is what I mean. Like, I haven't been able to keep up online, like on all the blogs and the articles, and because now all these queens, and it's started this whole conversation about performers of color, queens of color, past Drag Race contestants, alumni, women of color, talking about how they've been treated by fans and non-fans versus white girls, white queens. And I'm finding that so amazing, all of this stuff, because I've never really thought about it. But when people start pointing out parallels and they're like, oh, this, that, and the other thing, there's this whole thing that I think Baron put into the Entourage part about how Katya calls out like how Jasmine Master was treated, but Acid Betty was treated differently.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't know about that, but I read like the gifts of it, and I was kind of like, holy shit. And I was like, wow, it really, really kind of was mind opening to me. And what got me was a lot of people are saying, understandably, as a person who is not a person of color, I don't know if I can understand this or if I can relate to it. And I think that's a fair statement. I look at it this way. The vixen kind of reminds me of Larry Kramer. Larry Kramer, for those of you that don't know, here's a little education moment, helped start up ACT UP when the AIDS epidemic was happening and Reaganomics was taking place and the government wasn't doing anything about HIV and AIDS decimating the gay community. Gay men had to round up together and stand for themselves and demand that something be done, that it be addressed, that the CDC get involved, that drugs, something is an intervention. Because they acted out, hence the name ACT UP, they drew attention. And so, yes, they're very like in your face. They're very political. They're very vocal. When you think about social change, most of the time it happens because somebody is aggressive, is pointing out things. Someone refuses to get out of the seat on the bus. Somebody chooses to march. Somebody chooses to protest. Somebody chooses to get, make a stand. And so knowing that that's part of Vixen's background, and we've talked about this before, that she's a political activist style, queen. I think that's all within her wheelhouse and her personality. And so I was like, talk about self-awareness in that moment where she was like, hold up.
Yeah.
Like, and I thought that was pretty amazing where she turned around and was basically saying, and I don't think Aquaria was claiming that they were crocodile tears.
Yeah.
But I think she was saying, oh, so this is how this plays out. Like, boo hoo hoo. Hold up.
And I like the fact that I believe it was actually Monet who, after the vixen was pretty much saying, I'm going to go at a 10 and I'm not going to change whatever. And Monet kind of says, I respect that. I can't, I can't, like, I forget what she said specifically, but something along the line of, I can't disagree with that. Because that's kind of the thing. As much as I haven't been a fan of the vixen these past couple of episodes, this gives me a different palette to paint her in. Because my main problem with the vixen is that she was always confrontational, and now I'm realizing, guess what? That's her. She's going to call things out. She's going to tell and spill tea as much as she can, only because that's her. That's the way she is. And then if you can't take it, then she's going to like be like, okay, well, if you can't take it, then we're no longer going. I cannot.
Right.
If you can't take me, I'm not gonna go there. And she pretty much told Aquaria, no, like you and I obviously aren't gonna mix, so you and I should not mix.
I think this moment in Untucked to me is pretty close, or maybe not so much close. It reminds me of another moment that I'm going to describe in a second, but I think there are some key moments that have happened in Untucked that turns into GIFs and memes and all sorts of whatever. But I think in the season that Bianca Del Rio was on, I'm pretty sure there were people that were like, what a bitch. Like, you know, why she always got to be, you know, like making everything a joke and be so mean and blah, blah, blah. Because if you recall, and this is infamous moment, Bianca has a conversation in which she says something very snarky, very sassy off the cuff to Trinity K. Bonet, because Trinity's making excuses and Bianca just gets tired of it. And she says, just one thing, just tell me one thing. What do you do well? Quickly.
And
yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
Trinity's just like,
right. And she just kind of,
stopped.
right. She stopped and she gags. And I was like, Bianca just handed you the goddamn rope. You're standing next to the tree girl. Like, it's a horrible analogy, but it's like she gave you the ammunition for this moment. Like, she teed it up and you can't deliver. And the reason I draw this parallel is because I think the Vixen is very in the now, very aware, just like Bianca. Bianca's personality is witty and full of humor and able to make a turn, tell, like, spill tea, tell shade, read people instantly. And in order to do that, you always have to be engaged in the moment. I think the Vixen is also always engaged in the moment, and she doesn't lose sight of the now versus the future and versus the past. She doesn't kind of get in this, oh, isn't this great? And it's like a dream, and I'm so happy I'm here. Vixen's like, no, bitch, I'm here. It's a competition. I want $100,000. Give me the crown. Get out of my way.
And that's the thing. Like, that was her thing. And I know we laughed and made, you know, fun. Like, I came in here to fight, but that's what we've seen so far. Not just like the like fighting other queens, as it were, but she's actually clearly, it seems, fighting for the crown. She's trying to get that, you know, get to the end, and she's going to do it however she can, you know, by any, I won't say by any means necessary, but, you know, she's definitely trying. She is not there to make friends. She is not there to kowtow and coy to like get her way through, like, and make alliances and whatever, as far as I can tell.
Right.
She's there to get to the end, and that's her goal. So
right. And it's interesting because Ginger T-Time said in our live chat, she said, Aquaria is young. I hope she takes what Vixen said and learns. And I think there's a thing about maturity that when you're a performer and you've done it for a lot, and you have longevity, you have all this experience behind you, and you've done hundreds, thousands of gigs and been in all sorts of spaces and all sorts of crowds and all sorts of things. You are seasoned, your skin is toughened. All of this stuff like gives you arsenal about to know how to maneuver and how to do the next thing. Yeah. When you don't have that much experience, understandably, like, things are kind of new to you. So it is, yes, it is very conceivable that you would say that this person just steamrolled over you. Well, maybe, but maybe at the same time, they just were better equipped. And like that kind of ties back to the Bianca Del Rio thing with Trinity. Because I was like, oh, girl, do not play a game of wits with an unarmed person. Like, and that's kind of how that felt that happened. I was just like, I watched it when it was, you know, happening. And I was like, even I would have been slayed in that moment, because it was so, like, I mean, I'll never forget, Bianca's wearing the silver ridiculous outfit. She's laid back on the couch and she's like, you know, probably had one cocktail. She's got that crooked smile and she's like, let me ask you something. And I was like, oh, here we go. And in this case, the Vixen was, I think, much more engaged, you know, and was just kind of like, and I thought she made a really great conversational analogy to say, oh, you come for me, I give it back to you. That's a problem. That's not how I play. Like, basically. And I thought that was a brilliant thing where she was like, don't poke the bear. Oh, you poked the bear. Well, then I'm, you know, and I thought this is a really good lesson for a lot of queens out there and for the fandom to realize, like, yes, there's a human being at the soul of this, but at the same time, like it's kind of like, and what I found interesting was I think what Vixen didn't say, but as a parallel is it's like trolling online. Oh, you think there's no consequence to that because you're anonymous? And I think what the Vixen was saying is, bitch, just because you say something near me or whatever doesn't mean that I'm not going to respond to you. So,
and that was the thing. Like the thing that kind of rehashed it up was the fact that Aquaria made the crack about the like, you guys are going to go to church and I'm going to wait for you guys to come back for, you know, the brunch. And she like, I'm going to be drinking my cocktails or whatever. And the Vixen was said, you know, that wasn't funny. And then there they go. And I'm like,
yeah. So it got interesting. And so for me, it was just that one pivotal moment. And then, so I reached out to a couple people and they were like, what's going on? People were kind of like talking and I haven't seen it. I was like, well, you get a hold of me when you watch it, because I'm very interested to know what you have to say about this. And I haven't heard from them yet. So I don't know. They might've been busy, but yeah. So that was kind of my thing on Untucked in particular. I was like, ooh, we got some social world commentary that got like just kind of popped right up out of nowhere. I was like, oh, hi. All right.
Chester, I feel like you want to say something.
I do. It's just, I want to make sure that I am phrasing it in a manner that people understand that I'm playing the devil's advocate, and only because I want people to think about other key elements that were shown. So they look at everything as a whole.
Okay.
I want to start off by saying I understand what Vixen is saying in relation to her saying that this is how people of color deal with this, is you throw it at me, I throw it back, and you're the victim. I get it.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out that the Vixen is also the one who walked into the workroom and said, I'm here to fight. She has had her defenses up at every single moment. So she's looking for people to fight with. When she's in the workroom, do you want to say something, Gary?
No, I'm gonna let you finish. It's okay.
Okay. There's a point in the workroom where they're getting ready, and Vixen starts it with Aquaria. Even though Aquaria has started things with her before, it's like both of them are going back and forth. And because of editing, we're led to believe that Aquaria is starting everything all the time, and that's not true. Vixen has started in with Aquaria twice now. Once was the episode on Untucked where they were taught. It must have been the very first episode where the whole face thing, the copying of the face.
Oh, yeah.
And then when the other queens are brought back and Eureka brings it up like, hey, I heard some stuff went down. And Aquaria kind of plays it off. And Vixen's like, no, too vague.
Too vague.
And she
too vague.
brings it up.
Well, so, and okay, so I get that one. And the only reason is at that moment, I think, you know, okay, let me put it like this. What I think is Vixen's thing.
She wants to stir the pot.
Kind of, but I also think she wants to, like, if something's getting said, she wants it to be said. Like, if you're going to sit here with just a few of us and say these, like, this thing that was bothering you and has been bothering you apparently between you and Miss Cracker for, you know, I don't know, I want to say years, but wait 1 second. But so she was saying that because obviously it is something that has been bothering her. It is something that she had in the Untucked. She made a point to mention, and she gave examples of things that she felt that Ms. Cracker was copying her. And to the point where she kind of says or points out that she feels like, or someone at least said that maybe Ms. Cracker copied her way into season 10. And that is not something you can kind of put out there into the ether and not expect it to somehow come back on you. Mm-hmm. And instead of letting it come back later, Vixen chooses to take it right there because it had been brought up. And since Aquaria was trying to make it seem like it wasn't a big deal, when clearly in Untucked, it was a big deal.
Okay, so in that instance, I don't have a problem with Vixen calling Aquaria out for being vague. The problem I had with it is it's not between Vixen and Aquaria and Cracker. It's between Aquaria and Cracker. That's their thing that they need to work out. I have no problem with the Vixen saying, no, too vague. Just 5 minutes ago, you said all this other stuff. That was fine because it puts Aquaria on the spot that she has a problem and she needs to own up to it. And it kind of opened a door for her and an opportunity to get it off her chest. What I have a problem with it, or where the problem comes in, is Vixen continuing with saying all the things that Aquaria did, because now they are Vixen's words and not Aquaria's. And she's not quoting her verbatim.
Okay.
It's what Vixen sees.
So to kind of flip the script on that, then how about Aquaria constantly bringing up the fact that the Vixen was wearing a wig in her best drag that wasn't her wig?
Okay,
it's kind to me like if you keep bringing it up, it's like that's kind of what I feel is the thing. Like if you're gonna keep bringing something up, if you're gonna keep bringing it up, why are you? Because it's now no longer about the wig per se. It's about the Vixen and her not being. And the thing that I wanted to, I wasn't on the episode, so I kind of wanted to bring it up. Sorry. The issue I had with the too vague thing is because, as we've noticed, the Vixen seems to be very aware of the surroundings and what's going on. She's aware that this is a TV show and that this is being produced and potentially edited and everything else. So if you are that person and you kind of have that sense of things, you're going to realize that what this is going to look like is that Ms. Cracker is copying Aquaria. We would not have ever gotten Ms. Cracker's side of the story if the Vixen hadn't brought it back up. Unless Aquaria and Aquaria and Ms. Cracker at some point in time in the future had an opportunity to kind of hash it out. It was brought up in the first episode that they always kind of have the similar looks and they are always, misread for the other person, like someone's that person. So we kind of had this built up in our heads, and then we get to the they're copying each other's makeup looks, which, no offense, didn't really look the same. If I'm being honest, they didn't look the same to me. And then we get into Untucked, and there's this conversation going on, and it looks like Aquaria is going at it about it again, and then Eureka brings it back up. So here we are, and I think the Vixen has enough of sense, like I said, of the surroundings and what's going on, that she knew that if she didn't bring it up, this was never going to get brought up. Or even though Eureka brought it up, Aquaria wasn't saying, honestly, I don't think she was given all the truth. She wasn't saying everything that she had said. She wasn't giving all the information that she gave those girls that were in that room.
My point with that was, again, I didn't have a problem with Vixen bringing it up. What I had a problem with was after she brought it up and continued to speak for Aquaria, when Aquaria, it's her words and it's her issue, and she should be the one who gets to say and talk about it when she's ready, not when the Vixen makes her. That was my complaint.
I feel this way about this, and I don't know if this analogy will make sense or not, and people can probably like say all sorts of nasty things, because obviously I'm going to step outside my realm. I think the Vixen's behavior is like the Wonder Woman's the lasso of truth. She is hyper aware in reality of what's happening around her, and the moment something is inconsistent, she calls it out, regardless of the consequence. So when Calorie, after they get back in the workroom, says, "So I understand you two had words, like you had something to say," and then Aquaria demurs and says, "No, blah, blah, blah," and that's when the Vixen's like, "No, too vague," and that's when she starts to tell the story, and then Aquaria gets mad and is all like, "Don't speak on my behalf," and blah, 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 and Aquaria's like, "Sorry, you had your chance. Like, now is not the time to backpedal it and tell it the way you want to. This is how it went down." And I was like, oh my. But then consistently, what I think the Vixen is delivering is, not around me. You don't get to pull no shit. You don't get to pull no shade. And you do not get to retell your story and change the narrative. That's not how this works. You need to be consistent. You need to be true. You need to be honest. And you need to keep moving forward the direction that you started. Or own that you change things, because that was the takeaway when her and Aquaria got into it at that point, after they were back and they were going to get out of drag, and Aquaria walks away and Vixen says to her, "Oh, why you got to walk away? Why are you going to go all the way across the room?" Which was very antagonistic. But Aquaria says, "I'm not that bothered." And I was like, bitch, you were bothered before. That's why Vixen's calling you out. So now we get to where we are with, the two of them and the interaction. And I just feel like Vixen, is kind of like a truth seeker in a way, in her personality. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised, because of her background, that she feels there is always potential that the truth is not represented correctly. And that is where she comes from. And while it is not always maybe her place to tell the truth, I think to her, the truth must be told. So she will do what she can to kind of draw attention to that. Is it right? Not necessarily, but I get it. I understand if that's her motivation, that's her notion, that she will pull at this particular, kind of like re-steer it back to, no, that's not how it went down. That's not how it happened. That's not whatever was said. And I mean, it's very bold. And it's interesting because we haven't really had that a whole lot over the seasons. I think there's been a lot of, well, she said. And I think the Vixen's like, no, this is exactly what was said. And I'm done with this. Like, we're going to pander and we're going to change and we're going to do and blah, blah. No, I think that's just my impression of it overall. It obviously makes for good drama and good television because everyone's paying attention and watching what's going on.
Right. I don't think that the Vixen's being a bitch for being this confrontational. That isn't my point with why I'm bringing this up. And there was a second thing I was going to say. It's more of, I want people to understand, and we have said it, I don't know how many times, that what we view at home on our TV screens is not real life. We are getting an edited version of how the producers of the television show want us to see it. Things are changed around. The timelines are skewed. So all we can do is see with our own eyes and view things at face value. And I want to make sure that people understand that. So when I say this next point, again, I want to reiterate that I'm not there. I don't know what was said, the tone it was said in, what was said 5 seconds before the edit, 5 seconds after the edit. But there is a point that Aquaria and Vixen are standing next to each other. They are not fighting about whatever, they're not bickering about whatever they were bickering about with the wig in the previous episode and blah, blah, blah. Aquaria makes a shitty attempt at a joke, and Vixen starts in on her. So it's not always Aquaria pulling the trigger. Vixen does it too.
Right. And I agree with you in that standpoint, because that's what Dusty Ray Bottoms tries, I think, to point out to Aquaria is, girl, no offense, you bad at telling jokes. Like,
Yes.
Like, you try to tell a joke, not a good joke, not funny, timing bad, like delivery bad. Like, I thought that was revealing, Chester, that moment where she was like, which I thought in a way was kind of comical, because I was like, well, she's trying to tell you some truth. Like, she's basically, it's like, just don't.
It is, but my point with that is Vixen knows that she can get under her skin, and you just did it on purpose. You antagonized her when there wasn't any bickering going on. So it's a two-way street with them two.
Right.
So you can't, while I understand Vixen's point of view about you're always coming for me, well, guess what, Vixen? You did it back to her as well.
I understand what you're saying, Chester. I think that I will say this. The Vixen is not a saint. Nobody is. So she may not be able to see how she also is leading like narrative and situation. She may be thinking like, girl, don't play with me. And in reality, it could be like, Vixen, you just don't have to say something.
Right.
And just walk away.
And somebody pointed that out to Vixen too. You could just not say anything. You could be the bigger person. Right. You don't have to bring South Chicago. And Vixen turns around and says, yeah, but South Chicago is here.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I get. And I'm just going to, I feel that no matter what anyone says, if you say something in proximity to the Vixen, she's going to have a reaction. Like, the joke was made about the thing, and Vixen said it wasn't funny. But that was all she said. She said the joke wasn't funny. Or it wasn't funny.
I don't.
I'll have to look at the episode again, but I feel like that's all she said, because I remember the subtitles being there. And
yeah, but you also have to consider the tone that it was delivered in.
Well, I'll look at the episode.
Right. But I think in that moment, what happened was it just turned into a ping pong match.
Yeah.
And, what bothered me about that was, so Aquarius says something, and then Vixen responds back, and then Aquarius says something again. But Aquaria keeps saying, I'm done. I'm not saying anything else. I'm going to shut up about it. And I keep thinking, no, you're not.
No, you're not. Because she keeps going.
When you say shut up, you shut the fuck up. When you walk away, you walk away. You don't walk away, take 3 steps and come back and say, and another thing. No, that's not how this works.
It's not like the weather in Ohio. No. And another thing.
Another piece of stuff. But yeah, like, that's my thing. Like, as much as I want to, I know we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm just going to try to say this. The Vixen is confrontational. The Vixen is aggressive. The Vixen is truth-seeking, political activist, what have you. Therefore, that if you know that in the first, like these, we've noticed that very quickly that this is her. Mm-hmm. So if I were a queen in this show and I did not want to be bothered with that, I would not be bothered with that. I would make any and all attempts to not poke the bear.
Right. But I think that's,
yeah.
I think
What
that's a
has
little bit
happened-
about the maturity issue about whether or not to recognize when to walk away.
Yeah. And I get that with the vixen, pretty much she has stated that she's not going to walk away. She is not going to back down.
Mhm.
If you give it to her, she will give it back. And I think, again, more so, she's not just going to give it back. She's going to give it back and then some. Like, because again,
Right.
she's not just, this is like, if you're thinking about any kind of like fighter game or arcade game, you're not just going to, like, if someone punches you, you're going to punch them back. You're going to try to win. She's trying to win.
Right.
So whether that be a challenge or a competition or a argument, her goal is to win.
Right.
And unfortunately, it can paint her in a angry Black woman vibe. However, that I don't think that's necessarily what we should be painting her in.
I'm just going to say this. I don't paint her as angry Black woman. I paint her as confrontational.
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like confrontational is different. Like different. Confrontational is different than angry Black woman.
So
right.
When the episode aired and we were in our Telegram chat, I specifically said, I'm not a person of color, and I don't see. I'm trying to understand her statement, but I don't see it that way.
And
I see
the
her
reason
just being confrontational.
And the reason it is
bit of a bitch, yes.
Right.
The reason it is that she mentions it is oftentimes in order to, I don't want to say satiate, but to play the victim, you oftentimes, people of color are painting it with a broad stroke. So if she's confrontational, it, for many people, not necessarily people on this show and the people in our Telegram chat or what have you,
right.
people see that as confrontational equals angry Black woman. They're the same thing.
Yeah, I mean that stands true for everything. It's like saying one drag queen is all drag queens. No, that's not how it is.
And that was sort of the thing. Like that was like, and for many, when like I'll use the Black Lives Matter movement as an example. That was something where a lot of people are having a problem with it because of the aggressive tactics, not realizing that a lot of people of color have had to deal with the inequality, the social injustice for years, and because of that, like they're tired of it. And the only way that they seem to be getting their message across sometimes is through yelling and screaming. We've tried the peaceful protesters. We've tried doing this. We've tried doing that. We've tried doing this other thing and maybe making strides, but never making the full strides. So now there are people that believe that in order to get there, sometimes you have to be a little bit louder. You have to be a little bit stronger and fighting against it. So, and that's where, again, to placate it, you get that angry Black woman vibe. It's like, instead of them saying, oh, hey, they're trying to get something across, it's like, oh, they're just angry about this. Let's not worry about that because it'll just pass. They'll get over their anger and then they'll be done. And then we'll go back to the way things have always been.
And I think part of the issue is that it's not being treated the same way.
Yeah.
So like an example that's used often is when a woman is being forceful, she's called a bitch. But when a man does it, he's being aggressive.
Yeah.
And I think that's some of what we're talking about here is that some people can just view it as, no, she's just strong-willed. She's confrontational. But I think what the Vixen was saying is that is not necessarily how people will see this interaction. And I'm not down with being painted a certain way.
Right. And this is why I before I even started talking about all of this, that I wanted to point out, clarify that I understood her point that she was making right there.
Right.
I don't see her that way.
Right.
Yeah.
But I understand how viewers will perceive her that way.
Yeah.
It's and I know we mentioned Jasmine Masters, before, and that's the thing. That was the thing, it was very much seen, and that's why she had a problem, and she almost quit drag and left it all because she got treated so negatively because of her appearance on the show and the way she was perceived. And that's what I think, several years later, the Vixen is now trying to challenge is this is what they're going to see. This is what they're going to perceive. This is what everyone else is going to think. And when I eventually leave the show, this is what I'm going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
And I want it to be known right now, point blank, that this was not everything that it was meant, that you're not getting everything that you're seeing. You're not, everything that you're seeing is not all here.
Correct. Are we ready for last call?
Yes.
Alrighty then. Are you good, Chester?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gentlemen, start your engines and may the best woman win.
All right. Last call. May the best woman win. Chester, what are your thoughts? Final impressions.
Sorry, I had
Okay, take a drink first. That's all right.
In my mouth.
Had to moisten your lips, your heart.
Okay, so we're what, 3 episodes in? We are 2 episodes from Snatch Game, if my math is correct. I'm not good at math.
Usually it's 7 or 8.
Oh, I thought it was 5 or 6.
7 or 8 queens, I mean.
What do we know? What do we know?
Well, it started at 14. We're down to 11, which means that even number Snatch Game should be coming up at 10, right?
3, 4. So yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
Anyway, I think the lead pack is starting to form. We are seeing consistency from certain queens. We are seeing them with their creativity. We're seeing their nerve in the workroom about how they're staying, their head is in the game. They're not letting all the shit around them that's going on affect them. So for me, I have paid particularly close interest to Ms. Cracker. I think she has done well in all 3 episodes. I think she did really exceptional this last episode. And for right now, she is my front runner on her getting towards the top, as well as Monet Exchange, who I think, if I recall, I said that I believe she was going to be towards the top from the very first episode. And the third one, I think, is probably going to be Blair St. Clair. I think he may have some secret weapons under her skirt.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I agree with you about Ms. Cracker. So far, been pretty consistent. Not resting on anything. Just kind of every talent she's doing something good. Monet, I have really liked what she's been doing, and I want to see what she does. Like I'm liking her, and I know we joked that she's kind of like Bob Drag Queen Jr. kind of thing, but I feel like that may be something that goes in her favor, because if you remember Bob in her season, Bob was very eclectic is the word that pops in my head, but it very easily able to kind of mold into the challenge and make it their own. And I feel like Monet has that ability. She's doing a lot and making things really good. And I mean, yeah. So, although right now I can't remember her runway look off the top of my head, but again,
It wasn't bad.
yeah.
Monet's or Monique's?
Yeah. Monet. Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't remember it, but it's okay. It's all right.
Monet Exchanges was red. She did red again.
Okay.
Because Best Drag was the red spangled jumpsuit. And then this was red off the shoulder, I think. She looked like a feather duster. No offense.
Maybe.
I didn't care for it personally. I was like, oh, all right.
Anyway, again, like, and you know, again, I'm liking Blair. I don't know if she would be a front runner for me, but I agree with you, Chester. The way that what the judges are saying is they are definitely looking, they are liking her and they're liking what she's doing. And they're always, there's this like they're saying, they're waiting for more, they're looking for more, they're ready for more. Right. So I'm like, okay. So I agree with you. I think there's something else that she's going to probably pull out somewhere, somehow. We haven't heard her sing yet. You know, I don't know if we're going to have a music challenge or whatever, but she did a lot better this time in the acting in regards to, as opposed to the second episode with the pharmaceutical thing.
Right.
But yeah. So yeah.
Damon, your last call thoughts?
So we kind of have already kind of gone through it, so I'm not going to rehash it. The social tea is kind of when I say there was a lot in this episode and in Untucked specifically about the you know, that these are, you know, that there are things going on in the world that, you know, that does affect these queens, and that they are aware of, and that they realize that they need to, sometimes they may need to address, and for good and bad, it is I'm glad that it is being put out there. It's not the first time that, you know, real life and real world issues kind of have been, you know, put into the season. Season 9, we had the, you know, Pulse shooting and how that affected them. This time around, I'm hoping that more things kind of, you know, play out, and we realize that while it is a show and entertaining, it is also real people. And I think that kind of goes into your thoughts, Gary.
My last call thoughts, I said drag queens are real people too.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it. They get a lot of flack online. There's a lot of commentary that's going on in social media about how fans, you know, post things, say, you know, inappropriate stuff, drop the N-word. I mean, just like really hateful kind of stuff. You know, and I really appreciate that a lot of those sisters and the queens are like, you know, basically locking arms and step and being like, back it the fuck up, like treat everybody fair, don't be a douche. That being said, the reason I said drag queens are real people too is because there's a lot of emotion that's been coming out, and Mayhem Miller has a moment that she's like, I let myself down by making a poor decision and not speaking up when I should have. And now I'm finding myself in the bottom too, and I'll be damned if I worked and fought this hard for so many damn years to get here to go home. So then she goes out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
My God, that lip sync.
Right. So that's the thing is she gets out there and she does the lip sync for your life. She does the one thing that I thought, girl, if you're going to nail it and you're going to take it home, you're gonna ruin your dress. As horrible as it is to say, you probably dropped way too much money that you don't have on that outfit, which needed a little help, but
yeah,
because that back panel thing was a problem. But I mean, from the front, the feather thing was, and so when she starts plucking right towards the very end and tearing the feathers out, I was like, there it is. Yeah, that's how you win the lip sync, because you are not doing this like weird air guitar, whatever, like hero game thing that Yua was doing, because I was like, oh, girls, just stop, just please. And no, but so I was, but that was the thing is like, you know, Eureka's had moments, she's had moments, Calories had moments, and that's the whole thing for me is I'm like, this is what I think gets people like more into a fandom, is that you see that this is a real person, that they have real feelings and that they really are engaged and that they're working hard towards this. And when, no offense, people come across as vapid husks, like without a soul in them, I'm looking at you, Kimura Black. The thing is, you just don't engage and you're not interested and you couldn't give two fucks, let alone 200,000 or whatever. You're just like, nope, don't care. So that's the thing is, I think drag queens are real people too, is that is part of the thing that's coming out. We're seeing that they care. You know, Dusty Ray Bottoms, Cameron Michaels are almost kind of like being preacher-ish and counselor to some of the other queens. Mayhem Miller had the Oprah moment where she had to like help. Well, she didn't have to, but she chose to reach out to Eureka and Calorie when the two of them were like, we're big girls and we're sisters and we don't want to lip sync against each other, but I'm going to send that bitch home. You know, like, and she was like, don't you cry. It's my job to cry. And I'm done crying. Like, I thought that was so funny. I was like, yeah, you go, Mayhem. And like, so that's the part that I'm really liking about this is that, yeah, there's a lot of confrontation and this, that, and the other thing, whatever. To me, it's television, it's drama. Some of it's reality and there's some social commentary, but in the end, they're just real people and they're just trying to get through with their episodes and their moments. So that's kind of my thing. In terms of who I think people are doing like really well performing, I'm gonna say this. I haven't seen it for me yet, but a lot of queens are voicing opinion and supporting Eureka making it to the end. And I'm really surprised by that. I keep consistently hearing it's time a big girl wins. And this is coming from people that are close to the heart of WoW Presents and Rue and LA and all this stuff. I find that very interesting. So I have a feeling that the top pack, if it keeps rising the way it is, would be including Eureka, maybe Blair St. Clair, Mayhem Miller. I think Asia O'Hara is the dark horse. She is the underestimated pageant queen that can do it all. But people aren't quite paying attention right now. In a way, I think she's kind of laying low. And this was the first episode where we got to see she got no problem doing whatever it takes. She got no problem being ugly. So now we got to see her really be funny and not be so much of a micromanaging bitch when she's a team leader. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that there's some of this. I think Cameron is a really great looks girl. So she's going to like carry to a certain point, possibly the top half. And we'll see kind of how it goes. You know, I mean, we're in that first couple episodes where I'm just kind of like, bye girl, bye girl, bye girl. Like, no offense, but you know, like I said before, I'm disappointed still that this is season 10 and they weren't all 10s across the board, as it keeps getting said, that there had to be some lows and some highs in terms of just like what they were bringing to the table. From the very first episode, I was not necessarily impressed with Yuha, or Yua, and just kind of sealed it. I was like, yep, bye. So we'll see what kind of happens from that. That being said, let's wrap up and move on. If you are not aware, not that any of us are wearing it right now, we did start over at our Zazzle store for Cubs Out Loud a COLDR grouping of things. Unfortunately, my COLDR of our logo with the crown and it says Drag Race is in the wash. Hence, I'm wearing my other pink shirt. That's very bright and very fuchsia. So you can go to Zazzle.com/CubsOutLoud. You'll be able to find that stuff there. However, in general terms, you can go to CubsOutLoud.com, our blog over there. You can read about what's happening with us on this stuff, as well as our regular episodes. Email is simple. It's cubsoutloud@gmail.com. Of course, you can give us a call and you can leave a voicemail if you would like to. It's 361 COL Talk. That's 361-265-8255. Social media, it's super easy. Type in Cubs Out Loud, one word, you'll find us. Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus, Instagram, I believe. Not that we've done much with it. And then Telegram. If you want to join our chat on there, I highly recommend that you do. This is the web address, tinyurl.com/telegram -or COLDR, all caps. You can join via link. Good thing to know is, and we're actually doing really well with it, so kudos to our guys in the group. We know the episode airs on Thursday, and we're trying to condense it between Thursday night and Saturday night that no one spoils anything, to give everyone about a 48-hour-ish window to get caught up so they can see everything. And then everybody just like starts spilling the tea about what they find. And as Chester has pointed out, which I thought is awesome, is people are like linking blogs, articles, YouTube, interviews, you name it, like extra stuff that we don't get to see normally.
Did you two see the one that Evan linked today?
Yes.
No.
Oh my God, that was so wonderful.
It is a video of Monet Exchange in the middle of Times Square on some steps. Tons of people around her, and she's getting in full drag from boy to girl.
Cool.
And the cool thing about it is it's recorded several years ago. Like, it's not anything recent.
Right. So it's not like a, I don't want to call it a stunt, but it wasn't done for timing for the show.
No. Correct. He said that he remembers watching this several years ago before anybody even knew who she was.
Cool. So that's an example of what ends up in our entourage group for the chat social network system we use over there. If you would like to, you can be a supporter of Cubs Out Loud. You can go to patreon.com/Cubs Out Loud and become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help support us in our endeavors here. You could also, of course, go to iTunes and rate us there. Stitcher Radio, give us a thumbs up. Basically, wherever you get your podcast, if there's a review mechanism, we would love you to let us know how we're doing and tell other people how great we are, because we're fabulous. If you would like to get in touch with us, you can pretty much find me anywhere on the web as GareBear73. That's GARBEAR73. Damon?
You can find me as Theater Cup 79 on pretty much most bear what have yous. Or you can find me as pup_Umbra on Twitter.
And you can find me. I never have this ready because I always read it.
You want me to read it for you?
You can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, or Twitter under the name The Pup Up There, or various bear dating sites across the net under the name Pup Shutter or Cupcake76.
All right, and we're exiting to Rocket is technically the name of the song, but everyone calls it To the Moon because it is so infectious. All of the season 10 queens, that's all they ever sing everywhere they go. If you haven't figured out that yet, if you watch them on any interviews and a group of them are together, they are always exiting to it, which I think is really cute. So yeah.
Bang zoom.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.